In this sacred month, there is a lot of ta'keed and emphasis in providing iftar to those who are fasting, and especially all those who are providing iftar for these nights, for this center and elsewhere. May Allah accept from each one of them the qabul al-hasan, and a reward of that be given to all of them, marhumeen, and whatever hajat they may be having be granted. In providing iftar, or in providing the food to mu'mineen and for themselves, again, we have to be very careful that it is halal in every aspect, in every way. Now these are just reminders, we all know them, just to remember them a little bit more. And if, God forbid, if something which is not right is being provided, then the sin of everyone that who will be consuming that will be on that one person who has provided it. So be very careful, because in this field of ascension to prosperity, one of the main things that does play an important part in that is this halal food consumption. If the food is halal, it has its effect. If the food was haram, it has that effect as well. So food which is haram, it brings about barriers, hijabs, which do not attract that mercy of Allah, and as a result of that, the heart also doesn't get enlightened. When we talked about the soul and the body, it was mentioned that one of the qualities or the merits that a soul possesses is ilm, is knowledge. And again it was mentioned that ilm, it's not these sciences that are taught in colleges, universities today. Ilm, first and the foremost, which is assigned to every one of us, it's that ilm ad-deen, and that is learning of usul ad-deen, that we are all duty bound to knowing who our usul are. If you look into the Tawzir al-Masail that we have, no matter what the mujtahid is, the first mas'ala says that we have to be a mujtahid in usul al-deen. We must know what the usul are. That is who the God is, who the Prophet is, who the Imams are, and the belief in the Day of Judgment. That is wajib on each one of us, and we have to know them with a proof for ourselves. We have to understand them. That is, these issues must be digested to us. So, the foremost in this ilm is ilm usul aqaid, the fundamentals. And again, refraining from sins helps a lot in understanding the aqaid, or strengthening the fundamentals. So if there are sins, there is contamination, you find that the faith and the belief of an individual becomes wobbly, becomes shaky, and all these doubts start coming up one after the other, and that is because of those sins. And among those sins which do play a very positive role in derailing a human being, it's the consumption of haram. That consumption of haram, again, if you look into the history of Karbala, on that sermon which Sayyid al-Shuhada gives to those people on that day of Ashura, says that my reminders and my sayings don't affect you at all. And the reason for that, it's all this haram consumption that you had, which has become a hindrance, a barrier in these communications from me hitting your heart. So the reason why these communications are not accepted by individuals, the first thing has to be seen, it's the consumption of haram. The other thing is, to our children, we are duty bound to teach the aqaid. That is, we have to remind them of what the aqaid are. Now when we say remind them of the aqaid, not just saying that Usul ad-Din Panch hai, Allah, Tawheed al-Nabuwat, and then come to Imam Baba and Masum Chawla. That is good as an idea, but we have to give them a bit more detailed understanding of what the aqaid are. And again, talqeen of aqaid to children, that is to us as well. We've got these talqeen that is recited when a person is laid to rest, before he is buried, after he is buried, and all that. That talqeen, if we get some time, just see what it is. That what do we say in that talqeen? Shouldn't be as such that we get familiar with that talqeen when it is being recited for us. If we have that prior understanding of that talqeen, it will have more effect. Inshallah, in the forthcoming nights I'll try to shed some light on that talqeen as well. The obligations that we have are of two types. One is wajib aini, the other is wajib takhyiri. Aini, kifai. One is wajib aini, the other is wajib kifai. Aini means a duty which is obligated on an individual, like prayers, that it is wajib on every individual and he has to perform it. Wajib kifai is that wajib which is an obligation, but if one person from the community takes heed and does that task, it will be removed from the other members of the community. For example, if a person passes away, on the community, on each member of the community, it is wajib that he is buried. And if it is not buried, if the body is not buried, then the community will be liable and punished. All of them, each member of them. So that is kifai. And if someone steps forward and buries that person, he has done the job, and also every other member of the community has been relieved from that duty. Among them, it's the learning of ilm-deen, or going to the hawza from a community for those who can, and it is again upon the community to send someone so that he goes, he learns, and he comes back and he teaches the community. That too is a wajib kifai. And if no one does that, then the entire community will be at fault, and the entire community will be punished for not doing that duty. And again, ilm that we talked about yesterday, which is knowledge, and that is the foremost in that it's the usul-ud-din, and also that knowledge becomes an introduction for the actions. If we have that knowledge, then actions also will be there. If that knowledge does not exist, then actions also would not exist. And the other thing is that confronting this ilm, we have shak, we have doubts, or sometimes known as hayrat. So these doubts are created in an individual so that ilm, it is put aside. That ilm, it fades away. So doubt is that second demerit which exists in an individual. And it becomes unable for the nafs, for the soul to perceive what haqq is and to deny batil and falsehood. So it was mentioned yesterday that when these doubts erupt in us, we have to clear them quickly. And doubt in faith and in fundamentals, it's an eternal devastation. Riwayat, they talk about this issue, and it was mentioned here quite a lot, that at the time of death, shaitan, he cheats, he deceives, especially at the time of death, because he says, he's the sworn enemy of man. He says to Allah that, respite me, give me some time until the day of reckoning, that I will mislead everyone. Now this misleading of everyone is especially at the time when a person is dying. He comes and he cheats, he misleads, and as a result of that, by creating these doubts, and when these doubts are there, and he dies, that person, he will be dying on kufr according to the teachings that we have. So it is obligatory that these doubts, they be removed until he is certain of his fundamental beliefs. Now, many a times we find that the proofs that are given for the aqa'id, the usul-ud-din, may that be for tawheed, may that be for the justice of Allah, may that be for nabuwwah, for imamat and qiyamah, many a times we don't seem to understand the proofs. Or the person who is trying to help, he doesn't seem to help. So what do we do? Doubts are still there. The person who wants to help cannot help, but we are stuck. The teaching over here from Ma'asumeen is that they say recite Quran a lot. Although your fundamentals are shaky, the proofs that are being given to you, you don't seem to understand them. Recite Quran a lot, continue with your worship, and then look into the sayings of Ma'asumeen, associate with the pious, with those who have yaqeen, cry and ask Allah to help. And then, by this way you will be enlightened, and by that enlightenment, all those doubts that you have, all those proofs that will be provided to you, they will be beneficial and useful. So, the basic requirement is yaqeen for an individual, that we have to possess yaqeen in that usul al-din. Now what is yaqeen? Confronting yaqeen, which is certainty, we have two demerits, or we have two raza'il, two negative qualities. One is jahl, we talked about yesterday. Jahl, again, it's of two types. We have a jahl which is just regular ignorance, and we have a jahl which is murakkab, which is known as a compound ignorance, a jahl murakkab. Now what does that mean? Jahl murakkab, they say that on kas ke nadanad, wa nadanad ke nadanad, dar jahl murakkab abad dahr bimanad, that someone who does not know, that's one ignorance, and does not know that he does not know, that is a further ignorance to that ignorance which he has. Such an individual will live in that compound ignorance forever. We have an ignorance, for example, I don't know something. If I learn, I can understand that. But the time comes that due to the severe ignorance that I have, I don't know. And I don't even know that I don't know. That is worse. So confronting that yaqeen, which is certainty, we have jahl murakkab, which is the compound ignorance, and also we have hayrat, which is the doubts that come across, that are created by this soul, all these questionings and all these doubts that come across. So that is the most lacking, which would make one be part of the party of kufr. That is, if these two qualities exist in an individual, that is that compound jahl, murakkab, and all these doubts that are in an individual, if these two exist in an individual, that would lead him to devastation and destruction.
Muhammad wa ali Muhammad salawat.
So yaqeen is that best merit that a person can possess, that is for the spiritual ascension of that individual. And the means of prosperity and ascension to this karamah, or to this benevolence, it's the best of the ethics, the highest quality, and the chemical which is used on copper, and that could change that copper into gold. This yaqeen does that job. That if that yaqeen is there in an individual, which acts like a red match, it would take an individual to the highest peaks of perfection and ascension. In a report, Rasulullah sallallahu alayhi wa sallam says that al-yaqeen al-iman kulluh, that yaqeen, it's all of that, it's the entire iman, if a person possesses that yaqeen, that certainty. And there is no one without sins, but one who has a perfect intellect and a complete yaqeen. Whenever he sins, he repents and he gets forgiven. But if someone doesn't have that yaqeen, does not possess that certainty, so he would never repent, he would never cry, and that forgiveness also would not be there. So yaqeen, it's one of those great blessings that a person can acquire, can adapt, and that too again stems out from that knowledge which we have to enlighten in ourselves. And that again, it was mentioned that al-ilmu nurun yaqdhifuhu Allah fi qalbi man yasha. It sparkles and shines in the heart of whom Allah wishes. That again, we have to avail and prepare ourselves for that light of Allah, for that nur to enlighten in our hearts. Now, there is a report which Ma'soom says, Imam Sadiq alayhi salam says that says that when it comes to a'mal and actions, do a little but be continuous in those actions. As it was mentioned yesterday, it shouldn't be as such that we do something and then we forget for a long time and then do another one after a long time. That would not benefit us a lot. So a little but continuous action with yaqeen, Imam says, is better than a lot of a'mal without yaqeen, without certainty. So we do a little but continuous, and that continuity will help. Now then says that yaqeen that has signs. Among them is that in his affairs he regards no one but Allah. That is, whatever he sees in this grand creation of Allah, he sees only Allah, and he relies only upon the Almighty. And whenever it is said that la hawla wa la quwwata, that every movement, every might, every ability, he sees no one but God. So that again, it's sign of a yaqeen. So every might is from him. That is person, he comes to that point, that is what he sees. One whose yaqeen is weak, he pleases himself by seeking help from every other person. So by seeking and extending his help, seeking help from every other person, that way he thinks he is strong, but he is not. He has a weak iman, weak yaqeen, or yaqeen doesn't exist in him, as a result of which he seeks help from every other person. I'll quote a hadith over here, which is beautiful, and which is a hadith Qudsi again. Now before that, when it was inquired from our sixth Imam, that what are the limits of tawakkul, that a person, if he wants to rely on Allah, what are the limits of that? In reply, Imam says, tawakkul is yaqeen, tawakkul is certainty. And then he says that, what is yaqeen? In reply, Imam says that fear no one but Allah. That is yaqeen. And further continues and says that continuous servitude, night and day, hidden and open, observing all the limits, all the bounds, all the commands that Allah has set. By observing all of that, a person can get to that yaqeen. That is tawakkul, which Imam defines further as yaqeen. And a person who possesses this great quality, he is normally ashamed before the existence of God. That is, he is drowned in shame as to whether he has performed his duty or not. And that is as to whether Allah Tabaraka wa Ta'ala is pleased with this individual or not. Our sixth Imam, he reports a hadith again from Prophet Khizr. He reports from Prophet Musa, says that Ajibtu min abdin ayqana bil maut kayfa yadhak. So that someone who knows that death is there and has yaqeen and is certain of death, how does he laugh? That is again knowing that we have a death which is fast approaching. We have a continuity and a final abode, which is the hereafter, with all those wraths and punishments that are waiting. We have a judgment which will be judged by Allah. Having all that in mind, Imam says that how can he laugh? And again, for yaqeen, which is among those beautiful qualities a person must possess, it's of different categories. Inshallah, we'll touch that hopefully tomorrow. Now in this hadith where Imam initially said that tawakkul is yaqeen, our sixth Imam, he says a hadith which is being reported from Hussein bin Alawan. Hussein bin Alawan, he says that I was on a journey with a friend of mine, and we were traveling to seek knowledge, to learn. And on my way, the student who was with me, he had finished all of his money, all of his possessions, no food, no money, nothing. And when he said that, what are you going to do now? He says that the next stop that we will be stopping, there a friend of mine lives in that town, and he will sort me out, he will help me out in every aspect. And then Hussein bin Alawan says that I said to him, Wallah la tas'af hajatak, that by God your wishes will not be granted. And then he says that, what makes you say that? That how can you be so certain that you say that by God your wishes will not be granted? وَلَا يَبْلُغَكَ أَمَلَكَ, and your hopes will never be met. وَلَا تَنْجَحْ طَلَبَتَكَ, says that, and what you want, that also you will never get. قُلْتُ وَمَا عِلْمُكَ رَحِمَكَ اللَّهِ, I says, tell me, may God bless you, what makes you say that? Says قال إن أبا عبد الله عليه السلام حدثني أنه قرأ في بعض الكتب. That's the sixth Imam. He reports that he has read from some of the books that أن الله تبارك وتعالى يقول, that the Almighty Allah says, وعزتي وجلالي, that by my dignity, by my might, وَمَجْدِي وَارْتِفَاعِي عَلَىٰ عَرْشِي, and by my exaltedness on the throne, on my throne, Allah says لَأُقَطِّعَنَّ أَمَلَ كُلِّ مُؤَمِّلٍ غَيْرِي بِالْيَأْسِ, that I will break the hopes of everyone who has hopes in every other person, not me, and I will leave him in despair. I will make him hopeless. So, if we have hope, that has to be with Allah. If we want something, that has to be from Allah. Knocking every other person, asking every other person, that is against that spirit of Tawheed. And furthermore, Allah says that وَلَا أَكْسُوَنَّهُ ثَوْبَ الْمَذَلَّةِ عِنْدَ النَّاسِ, says that I will make him wretched, I will defame him among the mankind. وَلَا أُنَحْيَنَّهُ مِنْ قُرْبِي, and I will drive him away from my qurb, from my nearness. وَلَا أَبْعُدَنَّهُ مِنْ فَضْلِي, and I will distance him from my grace. And then says أَيَأُمُّلُ غَيْرِي فِي الشَّدَائِرِ, that when it comes to tough situations, when it comes to problems and afflictions, does he have hope in others than me? وَالشَّدَائِدُ بِيَدِي, when all these afflictions and problems you see were from me. وَيَرْجُو غَيْرِي وَيَقْرَعُ بِالْفِكْرِ بَابَ غَيْرِي, and he has hope in every other person, and by his thoughts, by his fikr, he knocks at every other door, but not the door of God. وَبِيَدِي مَفَاتِيحُ الْأَبْوَابِ وَهِيَ مُعَلَّقَةٌ, says that in my hands are the keys to all of these closed doors. وَهِيَ مُغَلَّقَةٌ وَبَابِي مَفْتُوحٌ لِمَنْ دَعَانِي, and my door, it's always open for whosoever who wants to call me. فَمَنْ ذَا الَّذِي أَمَّلَنِي لِنَوَائِبِهِ فَقَدَّعْتُهُ دُونَهَا, then Allah challenges and says that, is there anyone who knocked my door and I left him in despair? وَمَنْ ذَا الَّذِي رَجَانِي لَعَظِيمَةٍ فَقَدَّعْتُ رَجَاءَهُ مِنِّي, and is there anyone who had hope in me in all these afflictions and I broke his hopes? And then says جَعَلْتُ آمَالَ عِبَادِي عِنْدِي مَحْفُوظًا, that no matter what hopes a person may be having, says all of their hopes, wishes, wants, desires, all of them are protected and saved before me. فَلَمْ يَرُضُوا بِحِفْظِي, but this person who in his mind and his thoughts is knocking every other door, he does not have faith in me. He doesn't have that. فَلَمْ يَرْضُوا بِحِفْظِي, he does not accept this thought that everything is saved before me. And then Allah says, وَمَلَأْتُ سَمَاوَاتِي مِمَّنْ لَا يَمُلُّ مِنْ تَسْبِيحِي, that I've filled my skies with all those who can constantly glorify me. And I've instructed them, أَنْ لَا يَغْلُقُ الْأَبْوَابِ بَيْنِي وَبَيْنَ عِبَادِي, and I've told them never to close the doors between me and my servants. Allah says, and Allah never lies. فَلَمْ يَثِقُوا بِقَوْلِي, but this person who in his thoughts and his mind knocks every other door, never has faith in what I say. يَثِقُوا بِقَوْلِي. And then says, أَلَمْ يَعْلَمْ مَنْ تَرَكَتْهُ نَائِبَةٌ مِّن نَوَائِبِي أَنَّهُ لَا يَمْلِكُ كَشْفَهَا أَحَدٌ غَيْرِي. Says that if in these afflictions and problems that have downpoured upon you, no matter which door you knock, if they want to ease and comfort you from your problems, they will never be able to do it. But I intend, I desire, I want. And then says, فَمَا لِي أَرَاهُ لَاهِيًا عَنِّي أَعْطَيْتُهُ بِجُودِي مَا لَمْ يَسْأَلْنِي. With my grace, I gave him whatsoever he wanted before he asked me. فَلَمْ يَسْأَلْنِي. And then says that if you ask me for what you want, will I not give? Before you asked, I gave you. Now that you are in need, you are afflicted and in problems, if you ask me, won't I give you? Now again, to understand this, before a person steps into this world, all his needs and requirements, the nourishment, the food which he needs, is already available in the mother's breast for that baby. Did the baby ask for that? He didn't. But Allah, with His grace and with His fadl, He has prepared all that. And then says, أَفَيَرَانِي أَبَدًا بِالْعَطَاءِ قَبْلَ الْمَسْأَلَةِ ثُمَّ أَسْأَلْ فَلَا أُجِيبُ صَائِمِي. Is it as such that I can just give, but when you ask I can't give? أَبَخِيلٌ أَنَا. Am I a niggard? Am I a bakhil? فَيُبَخِّلُنِي عَبْدِي. That my servant, he is a niggard in asking me. Now one of the beauties that we are taught in this sacred month of Ramadan, it's approaching Allah wa ta'ala, and that is by way of dua. If you look into this dua that we recite after each prayer, Allahumma adkhil ala ahli al-qubur as-surur, Allahumma aghni kulla faqir, so on and so forth. Again, that is a teaching that we have. That dua, it's so open and so generous, it takes on board everyone. Allahumma adkhil ala ahli al-qubur as-surur. And it's also known that that too is in a sense dua faraj, because it's thousands of years, 1,300 years till now, that people have been reciting that dua and it hasn't been granted as if. So when will that be granted? That will be granted when the Imam is here, when the Imam comes. So that is Allahumma adkhil ala ahli al-qubur as-surur. To all the dwellers of the graves, Allah, make them happy. So all of them, not only mu'mineen, all of them, regardless of their faith, regardless of their caste, creed, culture, nation, whatever, whoever that is. Or when it says that Allahumma aghni kulla faqir, that whosoever is poor, make them rich, regardless of his deen, regardless of who he is. Or Allahumma shfi kulla mareed, that whoever is ill, whoever is sick, grant shifa to each one of them. So when it comes to asking Allah, the teaching in this month of Ramadan is that ask Him generously. Don't be a niggard in asking Him. And when you ask Him, ask a lot. Ask for everyone, and when you ask for everyone, you too are part of that everyone, you also will be granted. Here it says that, before you asked me, I gave you. Now that you ask me, won't I give you? I will give you definitely. أَبَخِيلٌ أَنَا فَيُبَخِّلُنِي عَبْدِي. Am I a bakhil? Am I a niggard that my servant, he is, so he doesn't ask me? And then says, أَوَلَيْسَ الْعَفْوُ وَالرَّحْمَةُ لِي. Is not the forgiving and the mercy in my possession? أَوَلَيْسَ أَنَا مَحَلُّ الْآمَالِ. Am I not the center of all hopes? فَمَنْ يَقْتَوْهَا دُونِي أَفَلَا يَخْشَى الْمُؤَمِّلُونَ أَنْ يُؤَمِّلُوا غَيْرِي. And then says, فَلَوْ أَنَّ أَهْلَ سَمَاوَاتِي وَأَهْلَ أَرْضِي. That if all the dwellers of my skies and all the dwellers of my earth, for example, if we take into consideration right from the day one that Allah started creating man till today, if we had 100 billion men who existed, who lived, until, for example, the Day of Judgment, 100 billion men from among the mankind, says that if all of that on earth and all of the creations in the skies, in the heavens, if all of them desired and asked for something, and each one individual, one creation of Allah, asks for all of that which everyone has asked from Allah, says that if I give each one of them all what everyone desired and asked from me, not a little will lessen from my kingdom. A kingdom which I have sustained, a kingdom which I have created. Says that, and the last two phrases of this Hadith al-Qudsi, they are very, says, فَيَا بُؤُوسًا لِلْقَانِتِينَ مِنْ رَحْمَتِي. Says, shame on those who have no hope in my mercy. وَيَا بُؤُوسًا لِمَنْ عَسَانِي وَلَمْ يُرَاقِبْنِي. And furthermore, shame on those who sin and who disobey me and have وَلَمْ يُرَاقِبْنِي and are not aware of my existence. So, among the qualities which the soul needs to possess is ilm. Imam defines tawakkul as ilm, that a person has to possess that knowledge, a person has to possess that tawakkul, a person has to have that certainty, that yaqeen, and if that yaqeen exists in an individual, he will be able to protect himself better. And again, it was mentioned that when it comes to doubts, these doubts have to be removed immediately, and if you don't remove them, they will become cancerous and they will harm you more than anything. And again, when it comes to doubts, shaitan plays the most important part in creating these doubts, and in particular at the time of death. And it is said that at the time of death, when a person is giving away his life, and if you find out that it's the ihtizar, it's his last moments, it is wajib on us that we face him towards the qibla. And it is recommended that we sit beside him and remind him of the aqa'id that we have. And what are they? That is faith in the one God, faith in the hereafter, and all these things have to be reminded to that person. One of the noble reports that in Mashhad there was this person who was dying, and he was among the good and the bright students of this Ustad. Says, I sat beside him and said to him, say La ilaha illallah. And then instead of repeating that La ilaha illallah, that bright student says, I won't say it, don't break it. He is amazed at how come instead of saying that La ilaha illallah, he says, I won't say, don't break it. And then it so happens that he never said that La ilaha illallah, and after a while, when he was in his senses, the Ustad, he comes to him and says that, how come when we were saying, say La ilaha illallah, you never said, instead you said, don't break it. He said, I'll reply you in a bit. Asks his family members to get his watch, Sa'ad. And then they bring that watch. He breaks that watch. And then says that when I was in my moments in that ihtizar, and you wanted me to say that La ilaha illallah, shaitan was by my side. Shaitan was showing me this watch of mine and said to me that if you say La ilaha illallah, I'll break this watch of yours. And that watch was too dear to me. And I said to him, don't break it, I won't say that La ilaha illallah. So these doubts, shaitan comes in a very smart way how to mislead and deceive a person, especially when a person is giving away his life. And inshallah we'll talk on this topic again, that these attachments, that again, they help in creating these doubts and these tahayyur in an individual, and especially when a person is to give away his life, these attachments show their color. May Allah Tabaraka wa Ta'ala in these sacred nights of the month of Ramadan help us understand His deen, these great sayings, and the words of Allah and Ma'sumin alayhim salam. All those who have requested for dua, all those who have hopes in these majalis, all those who have passed away, all those who have sponsored the iftar, all those who have served in whatever way, in whatever manner, in maintaining the dignity, the quality of these majalis. May Allah accept from each one of them bi qabulin hasan, all of their relatives, all those who have passed away, especially from those present in this majlis. May Allah elevate their ranks and grant further and further higher maqamat to them in their levels in Barzakh. And for all and everyone, 3 lakh salawats. That a soul possesses is ilm, is knowledge. And again it was mentioned that ilm, it's not these sciences that are taught in colleges, universities today. Ilm, first and the foremost, which is assigned to every one of us, it's that ilm al-deen, and that is learning of usul al-deen, that we are all duty bound to knowing who our usul are. If you look into the Tawzir al-Masail that we have, no matter what the mujtahid is, the first mas'ala says that we have to be a mujtahid in usul al-deen. We must know what the usul are. That is who the God is, who the Prophet is, who the Imams are, and the belief in the Day of Judgment. That is wajib on each one of us, and we have to know them with a proof for ourselves. We have to understand them. That is, these issues must be digested to us. So, the foremost in this ilm is ilm usul aqaid, the fundamentals. And again, refraining from sins helps a lot in understanding the aqaid, or strengthening the fundamentals. So if there are sins, there is contamination, you find that the faith and the belief of an individual becomes wobbly, becomes shaky, and all these doubts start coming up one after the other, and that is because of those sins. And among those sins which do play a very positive role in derailing a human being, it's the consumption of haram. That consumption of haram, again, if you look into the history of Karbala, on that sermon which says, in this sacred month, there is a lot of ta'keed and emphasis in providing iftar to those who are fasting, and especially all those who are providing iftar for these nights, for this center and elsewhere. May Allah accept from each one of them the Qabul al-Hasan, and a reward of that be given to all of them, marhumeen, and whatever hajat they may be having be granted. In providing iftar, or in providing the food to mu'mineen and for themselves, again, we have to be very careful that it is halal in every aspect, in every way. Now these are just reminders, we all know them, just to remember them a little bit more. And if, God forbid, if something which is not right is being provided, then the sin of everyone that who will be consuming that will be on that one person who has provided it. So be very careful, because in this field of ascension to prosperity, one of the main things that does play an important part in that is this halal food consumption. If the food is halal, it has its effect. If the food was haram, it has that effect as well. So food which is haram, it brings about barriers, hijabs, which do not attract that mercy of Allah, and as a result of that, the heart also doesn't get enlightened. When we talked about the soul and the body, it was mentioned that one of the qualities or the merits of the shuhada gives to those people on the day of Ashura says that my reminders and my sayings don't affect you at all. And the reason for that, it's all this haram consumption that you had, which has become a hindrance, a barrier in these communications from me hitting your heart. So the reason why these communications are not accepted by individuals, the first thing has to be seen, it's the consumption of haram. The other thing is, to our children, we are duty bound to teach the aqaid. That is, we have to remind them of what the aqaid are. Now when we say remind them of the aqaid, not just saying that Usul al-Din Pan say Allah, Tawhid al-Nabuwat, and